Oh, I'm in the wrong place.
Right, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Please be seated. Why have I got two copies?
It's the minutes.
Oh, the originals, right. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting, the meeting of the 23rd of November 2022. Can I take it these are a correct record of the proceedings? Thank you. I will sign them later on this evening. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest from members? None? Thank you. Public participation. I'm advised that there is no public members of the public present. Announcements. I have no announcements. Chief Executive. The Chief Executive has none. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Just to tender apologies, Mr Mayor, on behalf of Councillors Sir Clay Mahmood, Arslan and Bassadoni.
Thank you. Councillor Tindall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have apologies from Councillor Rensley, Councillor McDowell and Councillor Townsend.
Thank you. We now turn to portfolio holders' reports, and we will start with Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of items for me under the leader's portfolio. Firstly, relating to the recent announcement about the closure and move from Hemel of Amazon, did have the opportunity, although we weren't advised of it before they went public, I did have the opportunity to speak to someone fairly senior in Amazon the day or two afterwards, and they confirmed that the site at Boundary Way is in the 45-day consultation period with staff about the transfer of the roles to their bigger centre at Dunstable. But the outcome of the consultation is in one way inevitable because they aren't renewing the lease on the building, which has already expired, and they've been running on a sort of extension basis. As they said to me, the building is 10 years, has a 10-year lease, and in their operating terms, 10 years is effectively the end of the life of that building. It's too small and it's not automated enough for current operations. They did say that all of the affected staff there would be offered alternative employment at the other site on the same shift pattern they're currently on. The only downside to that, they couldn't actually confirm that is everybody, including agency staff or those who are directly employed by Amazon. They also confirmed that the delivery station, which is on Swallowdale Lane, the site where you see all the small white vans going in and out all day long like ants, is also being transferred to Dunstable. But that is not affected in the same way. It's not subject to the 45-day consultation as it's a smaller site, and all staff at that site will transfer with the operation. They also confirmed that they are not subject to, contrary to rumours, looking for any other site in the Hemel Hempstead or Dacorum area currently. The second thing I want to notify Council of is a change to portfolio holder responsibilities with immediate effect. Responsibility for all of the Council's non-HRA properties, so all general fund properties, investment properties and commercial estate, will move from the place portfolio under Councillor Anderson to the commercial strategy and delivery under myself. That's all I have to report, Mr Mayor. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm pleased to hear that Councillor Anderson is managing to expand his empire yet further. Have we any questions for the portfolio holder?
Councillor Tindall.
Councillor Tindall.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank the leader for his statement and his efforts on behalf of the Amazon workforce. Can we take it that there will no longer be an Amazon presence in Hemel Hempstead? And that's one point. And the other point is, do we know whether under the consultation process and also in good employment practice, that Amazon will be prepared to subsidise the fares to Dunstable for those workers who want to travel to Dunstable for the alternative jobs for a period of time?
Councillor Tyndall's more experienced in workforce-related matters than I am, and I know he's been on the other side of these negotiations and quite a few times. In answer to the first question, my understanding from speaking to Amazon is they will not have a presence in Hemel Hempstead. They have no other sites, and they're not looking for any other sites in the current time. They just referred to transferring everything to Dunstable. They also said that while they're in a 45-day collective consultation period at the moment, they will then enter into individual consultation periods with affected staff. There was no, I have to say, there was no comment around whether what that package would include or whether they would be covering costs. I do know that they do provide a coach or a bus from Luton to the Hemel Hempstead site. They're providing staff transport to Hemel Hempstead because they couldn't get sufficient staff within the Hemel Hempstead catchment area. Whether they'll provide that in reverse, I don't know.
If there are no other questions for Councillor Williams, we will turn to Neighbourhood Services. Councillor Barrett.
Sorry, with apologies to you, Mr. Mayor, we had a quick consultation. There is a rather urgent question that one of my colleagues would like to ask the leader about concerning a motion, a subject that's been in the press recently. I'm grateful for doing it. It's not a decorum matter, but it is something that is of public interest. If it would be allowed.
It's a question that members...
It's concerning the policing in Hertfordshire.
Is it going to be a statement or a question, Councillor?
It's a question.
Of...
From me.
Addressed to...
The
Addressed
leader.
to the leader.
Thank you. Yes, that's fine. We'll allow that.
Make sure it's...
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to take to make this question. In November of 2021, the Council agreed a motion that I proposed on violence against women and girls. And part of that motion was to write to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire and ask him to undertake some things, including reviewing their workforce practices, to review the safeguarding and vetting of everybody that worked in Herts Constabulary, and also urging Hertfordshire Police to record misogyny as a hate crime. Now, we did have a detailed response to this in February 2022, which you forwarded to us. But in light of what's happened really tragically and horrendously in the Metropolitan Police by an officer who lives in Hertfordshire, what I would like to ask the Leader of the Council is if he will follow up on the letter that we wrote in 2021 to the Police and Crime Commissioner and ask what actions he's taking following this to ensure that the same things that happened in the Metropolitan Police can never happen in Hertfordshire Police.
Sorry, is your question that you would like the Leader of the Council to approach the Commissioner about this?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Does that satisfy you?
Yes, thank you. That's sufficient.
Thank you very much. If there, we shall turn to Neighbourhood Services. Councillor Barrett. Oh, I'm looking at my agenda. Perhaps it differs from yours. Councillor, I'm quite happy. Councillor Griffiths, if you'd like to speak first. Councillor Griffiths, Housing Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really happy to go with, you're chairing the meeting, I'm happy to go with wherever you want.
That's a leading suggestion.
Housing operations. The AD Housing Operations and Safer Communities has been appointed and confirmed. The familiarisation meeting with all the new team leaders has been conducted. A successful bid for LGA Housing Advisory Fund of £20,000 to support the progress of temporary accommodation review within the HTIP. There's been a review of the homeless out-of-hours service to determine value for money and alternative options. Progression of the new domestic abuse policies through external consultation and committees, which has provided positive feedback on the proposed approach. 5 warrants are pending execution of unlicensed HMOs across the borough, houses of multiple occupation. Successful interventions have been undertaken to improve condition of several town centre-based properties. A civil penalty action pending against a local business for breach of regulatory housing standards. Contribution to a collaborative activity to support partner-led approach to cost of living impact for residents. A review of the allocations policy income thresholds, which has been increased by 10% to reflect the affordability pressures for residents. A state inspection programme is being progressed with the focus on delivering the actions and applying the learning from the recent set of actions. Housing needs analysis for the support and tenancy sustainment needed is being progressed. An updated support model is being developed for discussion based on identified current and future needs. A new service charge team leader is due to start in mid-February, and this will support the improvements needed in the charges levied to tenants and leaseholders. There are delays being experienced in achieving dates at the County Court for possession hearings, and the issue is being raised with the court. This will have an impact on arrears recovery and potentially on legal action to enforce access to properties. The review of the warden alarm contract is progressing through the Council's commissioning board. The HRA business plan is being reviewed and the financial model updated with the current information and assumptions. Under housing strategy and tenant engagement, the housing strategy, external and internal stakeholder consultation completed in November-December. The draft document is on track to be ready by the end of this month, early February. Prevention of homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. The periodic review has been completed, including stakeholder engagement sessions in December. Again, the draft is due to be shared at the end of the month, this month. The Osborne chatbot workshop being planned in partnership with Osborne's for February-March to get resident engagement. Tenant satisfaction measures, the STAR survey. We're currently researching options to deliver this year. That's in-house versus external provider. Strategic housing and investment, the AD has been appointed and confirmed, and the handovers and familiarisation has commenced. A £9 million funding secured from Homes England to support the programme. We've entered into a contract with Helex for St Margaret's Way project. Current site activity is going well at Paradise, Randall's Ride, Willstone, and 5 garage sites and Eastwick Row. However, contractors have submitted claims in conjunction with the effects of inflation and seeking additional costs due to rising prices. The Paradise Depot project is out to tender. The team are experiencing delays with Hearts County Council, Highways and Flood Authority. A topping out ceremony for Eastwick Row is scheduled for the 1st of February. A VIP tour of Paradise Fields is scheduled for the 31st of January. A members' briefing session on housing development is scheduled for tomorrow night, and I would urge all members to attend. It is virtual. A recruitment process for the investment team has commenced with interview scheduled for this week. I'm not going to finish this. Housing property. Damp and mould reports have significantly increased following the reports in the media. DBC response has been reported to the regulator of social housing, and a comprehensive report has been presented to DBC elected members. Improved governance and oversight of the Osborne Property Services have been put in place to drive service improvements for our residents. However, there is no quick fix. Total asset management contract recommission will require a contract extension to ensure the new methodology and approach to procure is fully informed via proactive engagement and comprehensive consultation with all stakeholders. Performance across all 6 reportable areas of compliance remain consistently high. Notably, the gas compliance outturn for December was 100%. And I have to finish there, Mr Mayor, although I have finished. Happy to take questions.
You had finished.
I haven't, but my time is up. There's a lot going on in housing.
And so I notice. Questions for Councillor Griffiths? Councillor Douras.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm always very interested to hear what the portfolio has to say, and I'd be delighted to hear the remainder of her report, because I'm sure it will have things of interest to us all.
I see no other questioners in my list, and with the indulgence of the opposition, Councillor, I will allow that.
Thank you, Mr
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to reframe it as an actual question if you would prefer that.
I'm perfectly happy about your intervention. Thank you, Councillor Douras.
It's only a few short points. Oh.
After a review of the Constitution, we may be possible to introduce written reports from portfolio holders, which would save 10 minutes per portfolio holder, give all the information before the members, before the meeting, and therefore we could go straight to questions. It would be much more smoother, more efficient, and everybody will have all the information they have at their fingertips. But that perhaps is for another day.
Thank you for the suggestion, Councillor, and I'm sure that our legal eagle by my side will take that on board. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I hope not, because I only finished doing this about 10 minutes before we arrived. Expected outcomes of the Greener Hearts Consortium bid expected mid-February, which, if successful, will see around £2 million investment in thermal upgrade improvement for 75 solid brick properties. A lot of preparatory work being undertaken to produce building safety cases for 7 in-scope DBC buildings for submission and assessment for interim safety certificates in line with the requirements of the Building Safety Act. And the HTIP, the closing phase 1, which was all about stability, informing phase 2, which is all about engagement, and leading into phase 3, transformation. The new comms plan is being pulled together and will ensure all internal and external stakeholders are fully informed of future journey and positive impacts to service. Thank you very much for your indulgence, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. We have a question for you from Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I may Councillor Diani ask the question rather than myself?
Sorry, I missed that.
Councillor Diani will ask the question.
Oh, I don't see. Oh, fine. It's fine by me.
I have a question for portfolio holder. There has been various emails from to many of my colleagues regarding the repairs and the delays for the repairs. So the question is there a plan to tackle the delays from Osborne? Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And the reason for my surprised look on my face is the councillor was at the Housing Overview and Scrutiny where this was discussed on Wednesday last week. Yes, we are aware that Osborne's have not been performing as we would like. And as she is aware, and as I said in my report, it's not an easy fix. We are in discussions with Osborne's. There's lots going on behind the scenes. We are aware of the issues. They are aware of the issues. And we're hoping to come up, well, not hoping, we are coming up with a plan that we'll be able to come to committee with about the strengths and the weaknesses and what's happening. But there is no easy fix. It's lots of different things that have caused where we are now. The important thing is that we are listening to our tenants. We understand the issues that they're having, and that some of them, they are not, I'm not minimising what's happening to them. I do understand all of that. We are taking it seriously, and there is an action plan in place.
Thank you.
Are you happy with that response, Councillor Dian?
Yes, that's all right. Thank you.
Fine. Councillor Symington.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Councillor Griffiths, I wanted to ask, I didn't hear it mentioned in your report, what the situation is with regards rehousing of the refugees and the asylum seekers that are in our borough.
As the council will be aware, we have a council have quite a few various refugees from various countries. I presume you're referring to the various hotels, etc., that are around the borough. That is outside our control, as in what happens to them in the process. That is all to do with Clear Springs. I can't remember the name of the organisation that's monitoring all of that in conjunction with the government. We're obviously doing our bit in supporting them through welfare and making sure that they're with the whole of the county council for education and all that sort of stuff. But actually about moving them on and housing them, we have no issue with that at the moment.
Sorry, just one quick, so just to clarify, my follow-up is just to clarify that since I think it was the fourth or fifth house that was released last year, approved for the refugees, there have been no further rehousing of the refugees who have now been in a hotel in our borough for a very long time within our borough.
Some of them have moved on, but we have not housed any more within Decorum, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Pringle, did you want to ask your original question?
No, I defer to Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. If there are no other questions for Councillor Griffiths, we'll move on again to Councillor Williams. I'm now following the authorised agenda, I hope. No doubt Councillor Anderson will correct me if I'm not. Councillor Williams.
Yes, just confused us, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm now on commercial strategy and delivery. I have no additional things to report to council. We're happy to take questions.
Questions for Councillor Williams? Are you indicating Councillor Symington? Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to ask, do you have an update on the Berkhamsted Leisure Centre upgrade?
Not beyond all options are under review.
Thank you. If there are no other further questions for Councillor Williams, we'll turn now to Councillor Banks. Communities. Oh, sorry, it's Councillor Barrett. Well, it's your fault for having ducked it in the first place, if I may say so. Councillor Barrett. Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Trees and woodlands. We facilitated the HCC free tree giveaway held on the 3rd of December, where 1,750 trees were collected by Decorum residents for use in their gardens. It is anticipated that this scheme will be repeated in the next financial year. Overall, 24,418 trees were collected across Hertfordshire, and this scheme is part of a plan to plant 1.8 million trees throughout Hertfordshire by 2030. We held a Friends of Chipperfield Common Christmas task on 17th of December. The group cleared holly and laurel from various parts of the woodland areas, with hot bacon rolls and mince pies being provided for all the participants. We're preparing updates for the two green flag submissions at Bunkers Park and Chipperfield Common, incorporating the requirements of SENG management into the existing management plans, and we're preparing to plant a further 120 standard trees and 2,500 whips over the next 3-month period. Clean Safe Green, we completed a deep clean of Berkhamsted High Street during December. We have completed the installation of the third batch of 53 replacement street nameplates. The replacement of all of our old style basket bins has now been completed. Replacement goalposts have been received and ready for installation. And we've been trialling a new graffiti prevent pilot scheme since early November, with 260 instances of graffiti being reported via the app directly to the team leaders. Environmental projects. Our Christmas tree recycling day, held on the 8th of January, was again a great success, with over 6,000 trees being recycled. Local scout groups, together with St Francis Hospice, also participated, offering a collection service to residents in order to assist with their fundraising. Chippings were made available for residents to take away for reuse. The remaining chippings will be recycled into compost. A total of 50 families took part in this year's Love Food, Hate Waste Challenge. 92% of whom stated that the challenge had helped them reduce the food waste in their household. Those completing the pre- and post-challenge surveys were entered into a free draw for a food vendor, the winner being randomly selected. Promotion of the garden waste subscription service has taken a considerable amount of time. Leaflets have been signed and will be distributed to all existing garden waste customers from week commencing the 9th of January. Vehicle artwork has been designed and subsequently installed on all green waste vehicles. Website updates have been instigated together with FAQs, which are all successfully uploaded on the website. I'm pleased to report that as of 4 p.m. today, we have had 6,275 residents sign up to the new paid service. For those of you who may be interested in percentages, this equates to an increase of 3.46% since the same time yesterday, and is 41.83% of our expected minimum number of subscriptions, all of which clearly demonstrates the success of this initiative. Parks and open spaces. The butterfly chalk bank at Warner's End has now been successfully completed. We have installed several new benches at Dolphin Square in Tring. We have now completed the removal of the Bring site at Grove Hill and installed a number of picnic benches together with a new planter, and additionally we have planted a number of daffodil bulbs. Work on our project in Nash Mills is continuing, where in addition to wildflower turf and bulbs, we are installing a planter, several benches, together with bee houses and signage. Waste services. Christmas waste collections all went according to plan, with the service returning back to routine schedules as intended. We are now planning schedules forward for Easter and beyond. Previously budgeted refurbishment works have now commenced at Cupid Green. A long service award ceremony was held at the depot, was well received by everyone. We facilitated the Christmas tree recycling event at Cupid Green, Berkhamsted and Tring, and annual staff training has commenced and will continue in throughout January and February. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Tyndall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Barrett, my information is that the county are proposing a change to the arrangements for dealing with recycling across the 10 districts in the partnership that has existed for some time. And there is a suspicion that this may well cause this borough a problem and affect recycling. Has this come to the attention of your portfolio holders, and also has any action or decisions been taken about how we deal with that matter going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. As yet, that hasn't been brought to my attention, so it hasn't been discussed. So, unfortunately, I can't give you any further answer at the moment.
Would you indulge me, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask the portfolio to let all councillors have a note about this as soon as he has the detail, because I was informed of that today in a seminar with the Director of Finance at County.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall.
Yes, Councillor Burney. Tyndall, I confirm that I will do that to just that. Thank you.
Councillor Freedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a number of great initiatives that are coming through from your team and the offices, some of which you've mentioned there, including the Christmas tree recycling scheme, which I personally used and found everybody very efficient and friendly down there. There's also, as you mentioned, the HCC free tree and whip giveaway. But you've mentioned in previous reports, we've obviously had a lot of problems in the past protecting the whips once they've been planted. And we know that the establishment of them to get them into a firm tree remains to be the challenge. Alongside that, we've had a couple of high-profile cases where mature trees that should be protected, we've been unable to protect by our current laws. So for everything we're trying to do by getting new trees planted, we're losing when a healthy, mature tree is removed. So my question is, are we trying to review anything between your team and our planning rules that will enable us better to be able to protect already established, trees that are already doing so much for our environment, air quality and quality of life?
Thank you, Councillor Freedman. Are you referring to trees that may be lost through as a result of new development?
I assume that's a possibility.
Just wanted to clarify that.
If you want me to answer, I'm talking about when we've got a private landowner making an application to remove a perfectly healthy tree from their property. The planning team, I'm not criticising them in any shape or form. They are using the rules and the tools at their disposal. But we've obviously found that we are not effective in protecting trees. So while I think that all of our work to try to establish new trees is very important, what more are we trying to address the fact that we don't seem to have enough power to protect already established trees, which by your own admission are so much more beneficial to us than trying to get the whips established?
Councillor Barrett.
I believe that currently we have to follow the local plan. That's certainly something that's under consideration for the new local plan and hopefully will be incorporated.
Thank you.
Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the portfolio holder believe that the chalk bank has been established on Spring Fields, aka the Warner's End Valley, aka the Dip, is going to contribute to an increase in biodiversity and help to contribute to our response to the climate emergency that we declared in 2019?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, very much so. I think it's a fantastic initiative and will encourage butterflies and biodiversity generally. So the answer is yes.
Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a question on litter. Good to see all of the open bins have been replaced. Did the portfolio holder consider increasing the capacity of the bins which are regularly overflowing by ordering some more and doubling them up in some locations?
I think, Councillor, I would encourage you to report any locations where bins are overflowing, and I'll take it up with the service.
May I come back, Mr. Mayor?
Are you happy with that, Councillor?
May I come back, Mr. Mayor?
Please do.
Thank you. I have previously reported such sites, and I've been told that that would not be possible. So I was thinking that when you were ordering some bins, it would have been a good opportunity to increase the capacity. For example, at Chipperfield Common, the covered bins are in fact doubled up, but in Adeyfield Queen Square, they're not. My other question on litter was, is there any update on the numbers of street champions that are registered and the numbers that have collected their equipment, please?
I don't have an update with me, Councillor, but I'm happy to provide you with that information after the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Barry Mears.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, the sound went a little bit funny over here. Did you say 6,275 residents have signed up to the green bins?
Yes, I did.
So that's just under 10% of 2011 household figures.
Not all those households have green bins.
But do you think under 10% is a good figure to sign up to this service? Just
No, it's not 10%. It's I think that the
Flats.
the target was 15,000, which is I can't remember the percentage now, but flats, and there's a number of flats around the borough that don't have green bin waste, so it's not a percentage of the total households. It's a percentage of the households that have green bins.
Do we think the percentage we've got so far is good enough?
I think it's an excellent figure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That appears to be all of the questions for you, Councillor Barrett, except I would just like to mention Lawn Lane when you're asking for extra bins. The shops there are appalling. We now pass on to, finally, to Councillor Banks, Communities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have recently completed the Decorum, Crime and Disorder Strategic Assessment to help us deliver the priorities for 2023 going through to 2026 for the Decorum Community Safety Partnership. Members will be aware that this partnership includes Decorum Borough Council, Hertfordshire County Council, police, fire, probation and health colleagues. These priorities are likely to include how we ensure we deal with issues like domestic abuse, serious violence, youth justice, exploitation, and preventing extremism and radicalisation, and how these measures are effectively implemented in Decorum. Not forgetting how we ensure we are building our community resistance to crime through crime prevention initiatives. We also have our community trigger. This is a tool that allows members and or residents to request a review if they are not satisfied with the action that's been taken in response to their reports of antisocial behaviour, and could involve the police, local health providers and providers of social housing. All have a duty to complete a case review when someone makes a community trigger request. Turning to adventure playgrounds, our adventure playgrounds have been successful in secure funding from the Building Life Chances grant to install a shelter at the Bennett's End Adventure Playground and Sports Together Fund to support a 12-week youth sports programme. Children Adventure Playground are progressing work which will see them become a hygiene hub. This initiative will produce hygiene product packs for young people from low-income families. In December, the Grove Hill Adventure Playground saw around 100 people attend a special education needs information event, giving information to parents, carers and professionals within the SEN sector. Turning to environmental enforcement, Mr. Mayor, our environmental enforcement team has been shortlisted for the Excellence in Enforcement Award from Keep Britain Tidy for our work in implementing our partnership with District Enforcement to address the littering across Decorum. The award recognises individuals or teams that are seen to excel in environmental crime enforcement for their organisation and acknowledges those who are passionate about the work that they do and the results they achieve. Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you want to join me in wishing our finalists the very best. Community grants for December 2022. The Council has awarded grants of just under £8,500 in December to local voluntary organisations to support their projects. 5 smaller grants were issued for projects that are aimed at supporting community activities. Turning to the cost of living crisis, without doubt, this Council is committed to ongoing partnership activities to support all residents impacted by the cost of living crisis. We are working with the voluntary sector to ensure activities and support is targeted and not duplicated. We have developed an action plan that includes detailed communication plans to ensure that residents are aware of the support that's available. Please check out our Decorum Life and the Council website, which has been refreshed. There is now an interactive map showing where support, such as our warm spaces and food banks, are available across our borough. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. I'm sure that all members would join me in congratulating the team that won the award for keeping...
Finalists.
Oh, finalists.
Finalists.
Well,
not winners yet.
I'm sure there will be. I have great faith. Questions for Councillor Banks. Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was the portfolio holder aware that DEFRA figures on decorum air quality, which contain some significant findings, had been sent back to DBC in July 2022? So presumably, the subject of air quality could have been looked at in November if the portfolio holder or the chair of scrutiny at SPEI, if he had been made aware, had made it a priority before now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor England. I am indeed aware that some figures have been released from DEFRA. Unfortunately, due to staff absenteeism and vacant posts, we have not been able to bring that report forward, but it is due next month.
Sorry, could I just clarify? You're saying it's being brought forward next month. Do you mean at SPEI?
Air quality, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sure that the chairman of SPEI will welcome that. Any follow-up, Councillor? You're happy with that?
May I, please?
Yeah, carry on.
Thank you. Does the portfolio holder remember writing to me on the 3rd of November, arguing that scrutiny of air quality was at that time, according to the portfolio holder, waiting on an update from DEFRA? Does the portfolio holder remember writing, quote, "Indeed, it has been an extraordinarily long time since the Air Quality Steering Group met with members. I understand, as you outlined below, officers are waiting on an update from DEFRA ratifying our data. I'm sure you will agree presenting an incomplete report does not benefit anyone."
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor England. Indeed, and we are still hopeful that to have confirmation from DEFRA that we'll be able to withdraw the North Church air quality management because of the improvement in air quality there, and we hope to bring that to scrutiny. Thank you.
Yes. Do you wish to contribute to this? A separate question. Then it's Councillor Friedman first, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of weeks ago, myself and 84,999 others were on a website trying to get tickets for Michael McIntyre at the Old Town Hall. Don't worry, I'm very used to this, so actually I think the Old Town Hall handled this quite well. However, I'm aware that a multi-party group of the Arts Venue and Decorum has recently has not been able to make any traction on trying to get more facilities to be able to handle larger events. My question is it on the portfolio holder's agenda to look at the provision of an arts and performing space within the borough?
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Friedman, for your question. Indeed, the Old Town Hall has had some extraordinary luck in attracting some very well-known acts and shows to Decorum. It is not on our agenda to be looking for revenue for a new venue, but of course, if we were able to find partners that wanted to deliver such a facility, it would be something that we would very much welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed you out, Councillor Guest. I misread my list. Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Better late than never. Does the portfolio holder agree that Christmas light switch on events, such as in the neighbourhood shopping centres, such as those in the Chorlton shops and in the Stonycroft shops, Warner's End, and in the Rossgate shops, Gadebridge, that it bring people together and help build community spirit?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Guest. Indeed, these Christmas lights switch on across Decorum, including the towns and our shopping precincts, were a huge success this year. I think partly as people celebrated the opportunities to be able to get together following the lockdowns and the COVID pandemic. It shows our commitment to community engagement, and I'm very pleased, along with other events like the Halloween and the Armed Forces Day, that we indeed are able to encourage members of the public to come out and meet. Thank you.
Councillor Harden.
Thank you very much. Can I thank the portfolio holder for encouraging residents to be aware of the warm places and the food banks available to them at this time in the cost of living scenario. Could I just ask the portfolio, since there was a map available for it, could the portfolio holder just reiterate again, or where is that map available for residents to be able to find out where warm places and food banks are? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harden. Indeed, my first port of call would be to the Herts County Council website, but there are links on our own website under cost of living as the board heading, and you'll find links there. There's also national warm space websites that you can access. You put your postcode in and it tells you what's available in your area. And I'd encourage members to share that with residents and make sure that that message gets out, that there's no need for anyone to be struggling alone this winter. Spring.
Councillor, thank you. Are you happy about that, Councillor Harden? Councillor Tyndall.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to the voluntary sector for assisting the council in providing the facilities for those who are suffering in the cost of living crisis, which is none of their fault. However, I haven't heard what we are doing about the 15% plus people who aren't on the internet, and some of whom are probably at the lower end of the income. And I just wondered what is being done to send information, including a map, of which I think Councillor Harding had a good suggestion there. Is it possible that a map is printed in life, for instance, or whatever other system can be used to access, so we get to every resident, even those that are not on the internet?
Councillor Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Indeed, we have made the first of our written notes through Decorum Life, looking at cost of living and the support that's available to individuals across Hertfordshire. We have, through the Herts County Council and Decorum Borough Council websites, there are posters that can be downloaded, and indeed, I know across the Community Centre network they are being displayed. And I also have just been passed by Councillor Griffiths the copies of the CVS. Who is it? Community Action. Oh, Decorum Community Action have issued a number of leaflets to promote away from website and social media based correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you. I trust you've given our thanks and a special appreciation to our voluntary sector.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Tyndall, I'm very happy to do that. Thank you.
Councillor Griffiths, are you waiting to ask a question, or have you just forgotten to switch your thing on?
No.
Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if members are aware or not, or even if the portfolio holder is aware, but Decorum Community Action Decorum have issued 2 bits of paper which I can circulate to all members so they can print out if they wish. Some of you will know that I'm a driver at the COD, and we've been asked to hand these out to all our clients, passengers, whatever you want to call them, so that we make sure that we spread the word, and they are help to manage the cost of living crisis, and it talks about Meals on Wheels and Hertfordshire County Council services and citizens' advice and the Healthy Hub and all that sort of stuff. And the other one is the Decorum Warm Spaces, and it lists the times of opening and all the places across Decorum that are available to people. So I'm happy to send that link out, that you can print them out yourselves and hand them out to anybody that you think, or in your local community centres or anything else, if you think that would be of assistance to any of your residents, if that's okay. Are you, sorry, so the question is, are you aware that this is available and would you like me to send it out to all members? Sorry.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Griffiths, thank you. Thank you. I hadn't seen them as hard copy publications. I'm really pleased that we are getting out paper information as well, because indeed, where families are struggling, I can imagine one of the first things you would cut back on potentially would be access to social media, you know, your various internet opportunities. So it's really cool to see that this information is available in hard copy. There's also the Warm Spaces website, which has similar detailed information about where people can get advice and support. And I would encourage all members to support their residents by asking them to check out through Citizens Advice Bureau, through Decorum Action Community Action Decorum. And I myself would be happy if they want to direct any inquiries to me to signpost people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. I did allow Councillor Banks to run over slightly because I do share Councillor Tindall and other members' concerns for the people who are not so well off at the moment, particularly. Well, finally, we come to the empire of Councillor Anderson.
Unless
Place.
Whatever happened to Councillor Elliott, Mr. Mayor? But I'm very grateful you've allowed me to speak, Mr. Mayor, because a colleague nearby was speculating that I was going to get chucked out, never mind allowed to speak. My empire, as you call it, is crumbling a little, but I'll make the best I can do with what's left. I think most members are aware that the council refused planning permission for Marshcroft, or land east of Tring. The proposal to build 1,400 houses to the north east of Tring. The appeal is starting on the 7th of March and expected to last 16 days. Following the lifting of the moratorium, the council has started considering its first housing scheme since and working through the backlog. Later on the agenda this evening, we're proposing the adoption of the Kings Langley Neighbourhood Plan. It's the second such plan that's been approved in Decorum after Grove Hill. What these neighbourhood plans are, they enable the local communities to have more say on the design of developments in their areas and to keep more community infrastructure levy funding. And Bovingdon, I believe, is working through the process and is going to be next. Under economic development, the Business Improvement District in the centre of Hemel has been confirmed for another 5 years after a successful ballot supporting it. The Council's Economic Recovery Plan continues, and we've been advised from the Government that our UK Shared Prosperity Fund funding has been confirmed and is expected in April. And to follow on from the earlier information and discussion about Amazon, I want to assure members that the economic development team went into overdrive to try and find out what was going on and to try and assist all those unfortunates that got the letter that nobody wants to receive. And one final thing on that issue is that I'd love to meet the individual who thinks you can get from Hemel Hempstead to Dunstable in 20 minutes, because I'd like to know how they've been doing it. Under Hemel Place, the Think Hemel consultation closed recently and the results being analysed. The independent chairman, unfortunately, Andrew Percival, got a really good job out of the country and has accepted it and is moving abroad, so he's leaving us and he's being replaced by Bob Lane, who's our independent chairman of the Hemel Gardens community. So Bob is picking up both roles. The Thinking Place steering group for Tring is progressing well, gathering participants and interest. So the council's partner, Commonplace, are being able to progress things as far as Tring is concerned. Berkhamsted isn't quite as advanced, but work still is available to continue on that. Under the Hemel Hempstead Old Town strategy, phase 2 of planters and other public realm improvements are continuing. And at the risk of straying into Councillor Banks's area and covering something we've just been discussing, I think it's absolutely magnificent the impact that the Michael McIntyre event has had on the Old Town Hall. I think it's really good that we're booking people like that. It will really raise the profile of both Hemel and the Old Town, and it would have brought people into the Old Town and really helped the Old Town move forward. So I think it's really good, and I look forward to further events, hopefully. The Hemel Gardens community, next week's board meeting will be considering the framework plan and 1 or 2 associated documents to keep that project going. My last report on commercial assets, as they're transferring to Councillor Williams. The performance of commercial assets is still strong, with occupancy above 95% and income 8% above budget. And the council is taking it, I can assure members the council is taking a very constructive approach to debtors. We're running at about 18% debt. And we remain braced for the impact in case things get worse. Poppy Field Cemetery, the drainage remedial work has been completed. The Environment Agency has started determining the drainage application, and we're awaiting better weather to put down the tarmac for the car park. Housing development has transferred to Councillor Griffiths, and I'm happy to take questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the portfolio holder think that the Michael McIntyre episode would give the council any more confidence to reconsider plans for a new arts venue in Hemel?
I think, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't give the council any more resources for a new performance arts venue. What it does do is it demonstrates us making the best of the things we've got and getting the best result we can for our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
May I?
If you have a supplementary, carry on.
Can I ask the portfolio what conversations have been had with residents groups about the possibility of engaging with residents to try and make the resources possible?
We're really straying into Councillor Banks's portfolio here. But, I think what would be interesting is if you look at some of the I've had it shared. I can't go into it because it's still very early doors, but in terms of analysing the results from the Think Hemel exercise, it is interesting that the performing arts venue was very, very low on people's agendas from the community. And the most important thing people were after was the green and open spaces. And that scored very highly above all other issues. And I thought that was a very interesting outcome.
Any other questions for Councillor Anderson? None? In that case, we'll turn to Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Services team has been extremely busy since November, firstly in the preparation and delivery of the Council's draft 23-24 budget, scrutiny papers in December, and now in preparation for the February scrutiny and Cabinet budget papers. The Provisional Local Government Finance Settlement was released by DLUHC, which is the Department for Levelling Up in Communities, prior to Christmas, and has provided additional short-term funding for Decorum in 2023. That will be detailed at the next budget scrutiny session. The finance team successfully published the final audited accounts for 21-22 at the end of November, in line with government requirements, and once again outperforming the vast majority of local authorities. So my thanks to the finance team. The Finance Service continues to work closely with Place and commercial teams on development of the Place strategy and the commercial full business cases to develop the basis of the Council's future strategy. And now moving on to the Revenue and Benefits Service, the Council Tax, Business Rates and Benefits team continue with the important work of administering residents' and businesses' accounts, ensuring that information is kept up to date as circumstances change. Alongside this, the teams are preparing for the annual process to update benefit awards and send out next year's council tax and business rates bills in March, This includes the first full revaluation of business rates since 2017, where the Valuation Office review the rateable values of every commercial property throughout England and Wales. The 2023 business rates revaluation has resulted in an average increase in business rates in Dacorum of 27.9% prior to transitional arrangements, and there is an expectation that this will result in a rise in queries to the service. The Revenue Service is awaiting government policy and processes detailing the additional energy support schemes that are due to be implemented imminently, and the Council will respond to these policies accordingly. Moving on to legal and democratic services, the legal team continues to support the core council service delivery and key corporate strategies to support the statutory and legislative frameworks in place. The elections team completed the annual canvass for 2022. The revised electoral register was successfully published on the 1st of December. The final response rate to the canvass was 94%, which is a great achievement, and the distribution of the register has been completed to those all entitled and requested. The licensing team continues to monitor compliance with taxi licensing requirements and had cause to revoke one driver's licence due to alleged misconduct. The revocation was challenged in the Magistrates' Court, and the Council successfully defended the decision and the appeal was dismissed. The team was also pleased to note that there were no major issues relating to the operation of licensed premises over the Christmas and New Year season. Moving on to people and transformation, they continue to make good progress. New digital people and communication strategies are now being agreed by Cabinet and have quickly moved to implementation. These marks an important step forward for our transformation ambitions. The digital and comms team have been heavily involved in the successful design and launch of our garden waste subscription service, which went live on the 4th of January. Thousands of residents have already successfully subscribed ahead of the leaflet drop to 55,000 households in January, providing facts and advice on alternatives such as composting at home. The team also continued to drive investment in filming in Dacorum. On Friday, the 23rd of December, Dacorum featured in the Christmas special of The Cleaner. The second series of the hit BBC comedy was filmed at locations including Berkhamsted, Boxmoor, the Market Square, Warner's End and the Forum. On New Year's Day, Sky also screened the premiere of a comedy romantic drama called Gateway, which features various locations around Hemel Hempstead. Dacorum also played a starring role in the premiere of This Is Christmas on Sky Cinema. The festive rom-com features Hemel Hempstead, Old Town, Apsley and other locations around the borough. Dacorum is becoming an increasingly popular destination for film crews. And lastly, work on recruitment and retention continues apace, with a number of successful appointees due to start at the Council imminently. More broadly, we will be bringing a market force policy to scrutiny in February, with a view to help us respond quickly to an ever-changing jobs market. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. You'll be surprised to notice after that tour de force that I appear to have no questions for you. Councillor Simondon. Didn't think you'd let me down.
I wasn't going to let you down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I just wanted to ask what the plans were for the £17 million of SIL money, and how what the plans are to spend it, and what the council's priorities are in spending it.
I know that's dear to your heart, Councillor Symington. There are discussions that are ongoing, and there'll be papers will be coming to various committees. So.
You happy?
Yeah. No, well, I am. I accept your answer. Thank you. Could you? When will the papers be available? But basically, what's the timescale for it?
Yeah. They'll be coming to the next scrutiny committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pringle.
Thank you. Apologies, I may be asking this of the wrong portfolio holder, so apologies if I am. But as you mentioned, the election team, I was wondering, have we got any statistics for the incidents or allegations of personation, otherwise known as voter fraud, in in-person casting of ballots in previous elections in Dacorum?
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. As we know, we're bringing in voter ID to stop fraud. And I do know from certain other councils where they piloted this that there was a big drop in turnout by a third. But we are publicising the fact that you have to bring photographic ID, and also on the government website you can get, if you haven't got a passport or a driving licence with your photograph on it, you can get ID. But I don't have that information to hand at all, and it's really not my area, but I don't think it's there. Okay.
Thank you. I just wondered, because of personal experience in my family, what happens if people suddenly discover their passport's out of date or something like that? Will there be guidance? Because there's going to be a big rush for people to reapply for things if that's the case. But I'm more I appreciate and share the concerns about lack of turnout. But the question is, do we actually keep statistics locally on reports, incidences, suspicions, allegations or convictions for voter fraud? In other words, is there an evidence base for bringing in this extremely costly, admin-heavy diversion during a cost of living crisis? If we don't have the evidence here, maybe we should be writing to those bringing it in and expressing that this is a white elephant policy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Pringle. With a passport that's out of date, you can use that. There's no problem with that. I totally disagree with you. I think this is how democracy functions. We can't have incidences where people are impersonating people. It's evidently this has been decided at a national level, and we will have to we'll comply with it. And you just have to look at places like Tower Hamlets, where postal fraud, etc., has come in, and also people have been found there. We don't have the statistics here, but I am fully behind this voter ID position, because most people do have a driving licence or a passport, and if they don't have that, they can apply online to the government. It takes 3 minutes to do it online. It's free.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Tyndall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The notifications of changes to council tax and all other information enables the council to deliver a piece of paper to every household in the borough. Has there been any decision yet made on what use that will be made to give information to householders? Because I would like to suggest that we take the opportunity to put in a leaflet or small piece of paper which encloses the details of all the cost of living measures and help that is available. That ensures that we actually get a piece of paper through to every household.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. This was in Dacorum Live, but if you let me take that away, and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
You happy with that, Councillor Tyndall? Councillor Freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to phrase this as a question. It's in relation to the portfolio being unable to answer the question from Councillor Pringle. Would the portfolio holder like to ask the Leader of the Council to assist that? The Leader of the Council may remember that he provided me a written answer to that question detailing voter fraud in both the 2019 general election and the 2018 borough elections. And you may recall the answer. I certainly do.
So you're asking me to ask?
Councillor Williams, would you like to interject?
To be honest, I don't recall the answer I gave to Councillor Freedman. If I sent it to him 2 or 3 years ago, I'm afraid I've probably sent a lot of emails since then. So I can't be specific. If you wanted a view on the policy, which you may or may not have asked for. The fact that the voter ID fraud is that unless the person impersonating somebody at the polling station was known personally to the presiding officer that that wasn't the person presenting, which the chances of that are minimal, anybody can turn up at a polling station and vote for somebody else, and in 99.9% of the cases, they would get away with it because the presiding officer wouldn't know who they were. So, in fact, there probably is a more significant level of electoral fraud than we ever catch, and voter ID is one way of dealing with that. In fact, in my personal view, the fact that we've been able to vote without showing ID is a very lax thing anyway.
Thank you for that answer, Councillor Williams. Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question about the withdrawal of the alternative funding model for waste services, which totals £7 million across Hertfordshire of funding to lower tier authorities. What approximately was DBC's share of the lost funding?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but I'll get back to you. But I would give you a wrong answer. It's probably looking at maybe 200,000, but I'll get back to you on the precise amount, if that's okay.
You happy with that?
Can I come back briefly?
Well, we are running very short of time for questions, and there are a number of Lib Dems, among others, wanting to ask questions. But if you may...
Carry on.
Councillor Diani. Thank you, Councillor England.
Question has been asked. So I'm all right now, thank you. The question has been done. Thank you.
That leaves us with Councillor Hollinghurst.
Thank you very much indeed. It's fascinating to hear about voter fraud. It is, in fact, in this country, pretty well unknown. However, the question of identity is important in view of the legislation that the government is bringing in. Can the portfolio holder please inform us of the percentage of voters in this borough who do not have passports and the percentage who do not have driving licenses? The last time I looked at the driving license situation, it's only about 50% of adults that have driving licenses, and I'm sure you'll find that the number of people with passports is lower than that. Can we have these figures? Because voting is important, it is the basis of democracy, and to make a problem where there isn't, and then, as the portfolio holder has said, reduces the number of people voting by 1/3, is a questionable process. And I think we ought to have some facts, as Councillor Pringle has asked for, before we go anywhere near this legislation.
I don't think Councillor Hollinghurst needed to put his microphone on there, really. We don't know the level of voter fraud, as Councillor Williams said. Unless you're known to the presiding officer, you're picked out. And I am clearly, if you've not got a passport and you don't have a driving licence, you go on the government website and you apply, and it takes 3 minutes to get identification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
In that case, that could be done at the polling station.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elliott and other members. That concludes the questions to portfolio holders. We now come to motions. And the first motion, I believe, is to be proposed by Councillor Sharon Wilkie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful for the amendment as proposed by Councillor Williams, and I propose the amended motion 1 is accepted and reserve the right to speak. If I may request your help, Mayor, I don't know if I'm required to read out the motion given it was amended and the late hour it was sent out. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
The mover of a motion can't reserve their right, they need to move the motion. They have the right to speak at the end, but they can't reserve their right to speak.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
clear to everybody.
Are you saying that you're having difficulty with the amended motion?
No, Mayor, I'm saying I accept the amended motion.
You
But
still-
I am saying that I would like to speak about it later rather
Yes,
than
yes,
now.
that's,
Yeah.
but would
But
you,
what I was asking you was, because with the amended motion only came through a few hours ago this afternoon, I'm not sure if all members have seen it, so I was asking if you wanted me to read it out.
I most certainly do, that's the normal procedure anyway.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Cost of living crisis. The survey conducted by Landman Economics for the TUC was widely reported in November. Highlights from the survey show that key worker poverty is rising. The analysis reveals that child poverty has risen in key worker households in addition to care staff. Nearly a tenth, 9.4% of children with nurses as parents are living below the breadline. This represents over 70,000 children. 1 in 9, 10.8% children with teaching staff as parents are growing up in poverty. This represents around 100,000 children. 1 in 8, 11.8% of children of local government workers are growing up in poverty. This represents over 220,000 children. 1 in 4, 25% of children with public transport workers as parents have children growing up in poverty. This represents 50,000 children. And indeed, it's estimated that 1 in 5, 19% key worker households have children living in poverty. Within this context, this council, A, notes with concern there is evidence to demonstrate that some families are struggling as they are affected by the current cost of living crisis. B, acknowledges the extensive support through various schemes from the government which has benefited some lower income households. C, welcomes the largest ever increase in the national living wage, which will rise by 9.7% from April. Recognises the work being undertaken by officers of the council with its voluntary and community partners to coordinate the local response to the cost of living crisis and to ensure that we make the best use of available resources and that residents are aware of the support that is available to them through a variety of methods. E, recognises that the Cost of Living Project Group, consisting of council officers and partnership representatives, is leading this activity in decorum and is working closely with county colleagues to coordinate support for those who need it most. F, supports the county council to ensure that all children of school age have access to at least one nutritious meal a day. I'd like to move that the motion is passed. Thank you, Mayor.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor?
I'm happy to second, Mr. Mayor, and reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Harden.
Okay, just as a minor point of etiquette, Mr. Mayor, I'm a bit uncomfortable with the use of the word kids literated throughout it, and I don't know if there's a possibility that it could all be converted to children. Thank you.
I must confess, I was wondering whether we're agriculturally inclined.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I did actually say children rather than kids, but I accept it is on the amended motion, and I'm happy for it to be changed to children without. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other interventions? Anyone else want to speak?
Yes.
Councillor Pringle.
Thank you. I am voting in favour of this motion. I recognise and acknowledge that it has been seconded by Councillor Williams, which is very much appreciated. I'd like to say a little bit about key workers because I think, like me, we probably all stood on our doorsteps during the pandemic, banging our pots and pans in appreciation of our key workers, our nurses, our carers, our teachers, our civil servants, our local government officers and our police officers, without whom our society simply could not function. They are concerned not just about their own families every day that they go to work, but about the service they provide to the public. Most public services are motivated by the public service ethic. They do what they do because they care about you. They care about all of us. They care about the service they provide to the most vulnerable in our society, the sick, the elderly, victims of crime, the vulnerable. It is a vocation. For many people, a lifelong vocation. And it's therefore a mark of shame for our society that those who should be revered, the backbone of our society, should have to endure seeing their loved ones go without heating or food because they are rewarded so poorly. This time last year, we were all talking about the choice between heating and eating. Now, many key workers cannot afford to heat or eat. Many have not had pay rises for over 10 years. Relative to inflation, their real pay is plummeting. But this calamity, because that is what it is not just a matter of economic misfortune. Yes, we have had COVID. Yes, there is a war in Europe. But planning for the unexpected is part of the government's fundamental duty to all of us to build national resilience, to defend our country. A series of completely avoidable decisions have been prioritised by all three of the Prime Ministers that we tried out last year and have led to the current economic crisis. Firstly, we abandoned the resilience of being part of the single market, all right on our doorstep, leading to labour and skills shortages and supply chain problems right across the country. Whilst an irreversible, ideologically motivated mini-budget was delivered in the autumn without consulting the OBR. How irresponsible, but who pays the price? Whilst we acknowledge the work that is being done to those who are suffering by the local officers we have, by charities, by concerned individuals, our children are losing opportunities every day. Children who are educated in the state sector are having their educational choices limited. We hear a government who doesn't care about teaching my children about the arts and English literature, who wants to reserve it only for the privileged. And children are going to school without being properly fed or clothed. This is not sudden. It has crept up on us. It's due to years of being governed by an out-of-touch, ideologically driven elite who have no real understanding of how ordinary people live or care for our public services, such as the NHS. It's simply a fact that the government whose policies have led to this crisis do not care about us as much as those who work in the public sector. And I fully support this motion and appreciate all of the work and steps that are being done by everyone to alleviate this current crisis.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I rise to support this motion, I do think we need to be very careful at the same time, because it wasn't just public sector workers that worked during the pandemic. We had a lot of people working in the food industry. They were all essential employees and necessary for this country to function. And it is a little bit disingenuous to imply that they don't care about the job they do. I think it's also important to note that they are probably earning less than a lot of people in the public services. So whilst like I said, I will be supporting this motion, I think we also need to bear in mind the wider population of Dacorum who are also suffering, and they're not suffering any less because they care any less in the job they're doing. We need everybody to care in the job they're doing, whether they're council workers or they work at the Tesco checkout or the Sainsbury's clearing their floors, or the warehouse, or the drivers. I mean, the list just goes on. We have to be mindful, this isn't just a public services issue, it is an issue for the country. And like I said, I do support it, because that's what this council is trying to do on a local level, but not just for public service workers, it's for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this motion and I appreciate that we're all supporting this motion, but let's also pay nurses properly. Let's also pay ambulance workers properly. Let's pay train workers properly. Let's pay retail workers properly. The reason we've got a cost of living crisis, above all else, is because over the last 12 years, we've stopped even attempting to pay people properly. And I think they've had enough.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think we should change the word poverty to relative poverty. It's very, very disrespectful to people in the second, third and fourth world who really know what poverty is. So I'd like us to be honest with this. Yes, of course, we care about people who are going through difficulty, but to put things honest and in perspective, the word we should be using is relative poverty to show our respect for people who are in the second, third and fourth world who are going through real poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Barron-Mears.
Thank you. With all due respect, we did just have a child die from mould in this country, so I think that's pretty disrespectful to say that it's relative and we don't have real poverty here. It's actually quite disgusting to hear that, so... Okay, but we're not here to argue about who's got it worse. There are people in poverty. Everyone accepts that. So let's maybe not say we don't have real poverty here. People are dying in mould, so... Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Barron-Mears. Are there any other contributions? Councillor Williams.
I'm rising as a seconder to support the motion, Mr. Mayor. And we could debate, the relative merits of different actions over, excuse me, of governments over many years. We seem to think that food banks are a new phenomenon. We forget that they've been, the Coram Food Bank's been around for 26 years. Yes, usage is getting higher. It's more prevalent and it's more known than it was, but it's not something that's new. Of course, people should be rewarded for the work they do. We as a council, I asked us to adopt, the proper living wage for our employees many years ago to ensure that we were paying people a fair wage for the job. And I think we have to acknowledge that whilst there is a lot of support locally, the government has given a lot of support over the last couple of years to the detriment of national finances. You can argue about whether it was all good or not, but the massive support that's been given to the economy and individuals within the economy over the last 2.5 years has left the country in a very difficult position. And whilst we want to pay everybody appropriately, the government has got to make difficult decisions about where that money is spent. And we all want to see an end to the current round of strikes and industrial unrest and for people to be rewarded. And there's no doubt that any of us that have used some of the services of the NHS and things over the last few years will admire the work that they do. And I have to agree that in some of those professions, it does feel that the pay is not respectful for the work that some of them do. But the government has to make decisions on a national basis. And we, I think, acknowledge that they've made some difficult decisions over the last few years about supporting the economy in a huge way, protecting people's jobs and living standards. And what's happened in the last year in terms of surging inflation, following on the back of the Ukrainian war situation, has produced a very difficult situation. Energy prices are sky high, and even for those of us who are working, are a challenge in terms of affording it. I know my energy bill has gone from £150 a month to £400 a month, and I do wonder how some people cope with those levels of issues. So I'm happy to support the motion and recognise, yes, we do need, as a country, to move to where wages are better, and that's why we welcome the rise in the national minimum wage by nearly 10% this year, which will give a £1,600 a year pay rise to those on the lowest wages. But we also need to recognise that we have to do this in a way in which the country can afford, and at the moment that's quite a challenge.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's a bit pedantic, but I do want to point out that although food banks may have existed in Dacorum for 26 years, as the leader has said, what is the new phenomenon that has happened within, I think, about the last decade is in-work poverty. The users of food banks are many and varied, but what we find now is that there are a vast number of people who are gainfully employed that need to use a food bank. That is very different to what it was 26 years ago.
I take it that you are supporting the motion, Councillor Freedom. Am I right?
Yes, I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Wilkie, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to talk about what we agree on here. I think we all come into public office because we want to give back to our community. I think we all are appalled by these figures. I'm not suggesting that anybody is happy about this, and I would agree with Councillor Mears that I don't think we should be talking about a degree of poverty. That anybody is in poverty is not a disgrace. And I think it's why we're here, isn't it? To work against that. Look at the figures. 70,000 children whose parents are nurses are living below the breadline. That's not a disgrace. Look at the figures. 100,000 children of teaching staff are growing up in poverty. I know many teachers, I grew up with them, and they are taking their own cereals into the classroom to feed children because they know their children can't concentrate in the classes because they're hungry in this country. So again, I want us to talk about what we agree on here. I am very grateful to Councillor Andrews in seconding this motion. I think that we can all agree on the motion that we have put forward, and I always ask us all to please vote that forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I take it you meant Councillor Williams rather than Councillor Andrews.
Forgive me, Councillor Williams, I did mean you.
Thank you.
To the vote still.
You
need to put it to the vote.
We do. Okay, we shall now proceed to a vote.
Those in favour.
All those in favour, please signify. Those against? Abstentions? I think the motion is, in fact, I'm certain the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We now turn to motion 2, to be proposed by Councillor Adrian England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I propose a motion.
Would you put your microphone on? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that prompt. How strange. I propose this motion, and obviously I will speak later, but I would like to clarify that it has come to my attention that the motion has a drafting error, and I apologise for that. The motion, in fact, should have finished in order to reach the central government 2035 charge of 65 target.
Would you like to read the motion out, Des?
The motion, as put, is this council notes that Dacorum Council is on track for 60% recycling by 2030 and is currently fourth in Hertfordshire for its recycling percentage. In order to signal a drive for more and faster progress, this council asks that the council sets out an ambitious plan to increase the recycling percentage target by 2 percentage points per year in order to reach the Hertfordshire Waste Partnership 2030 target. And as I say, that should be the central government target for 2035.
I think we can accept that amendment unless anyone wishes to dissent.
What amendment?
To the wording, the central government target of 2035, rather than the Hertfordshire Waste Partnership target of 2030. Before we get it, if that is contentious, Councillor Williams, let us first see if we have a seconder.
I second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you.
Meeting whether they'll agree to the
Okay.
alteration.
Yeah.
before you
Okay.
can proceed.
Thank you. I would like to ask whether we're prepared to accept this amendment to the wording. Rather than debate it, shall we just have a vote to that effect?
Mr Mayor, if it would help, in order to comply with standing orders and constitution, it is permissible to propose an amendment to the wording of a motion at this time, and therefore I would like to propose that the Hertfordshire Waste Partnership 2030 is deleted and is replaced by the wording 2025 used by my colleague Councillor Adrian England, and my next door colleague will second that. Get up and second it.
So we now have an amended motion.
You have to ask if there's any comments on the amendment.
Right.
And then you have to have a vote on it.
Okay, we're now considering the amended motion. Does anyone wish to speak to that? Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have prepared a statement, which I will read, but it was done on the premise that the motion was at the 2030 target. So I will read this, but I'll mention the 2035 at the end, or refer to the target at the end. So Decorum has an excellent track record of recycling household waste. Over the last decade, DBC has delivered one of the fastest increases in its recycling rate out of the 10 Hertfordshire authorities, from mid 40% in 2011 to over 52% in 21-22. This compares with the English national average of circa 42%, which has remained fairly static over the same period. Our recycling rates will continue to increase, in part due to the following: our continuing intensifying our recycling message to all our residents, continuing our frequent social media messaging, visits to schools, organised events and future campaigns, and reducing contamination from data collected from waste collection crews. In addition, there are a number of changes to the way that recycling waste is collected, or could be collected, all of which will be considered in the future. The Government is currently proposing changes to the Environmental Act 2021 to the ways which councils collect recycling waste and how it is funded. These changes could require a major redesign of our waste collection services, and we will need to consider these potential significant changes when we have sufficient information of what is required and how it is funded. Inevitably, there will be variations in the rate of increase each year, and for the reasons I've stated, and others that no doubt cannot be foreseen. Decorum is very much on course to achieve its the 60% 2030 target, which of course is still 7 years away, and I don't think is appropriate to be diverted by setting short-term targets. In terms of the 2035 that's now been referred to, the borough doesn't have a 2035 target. In order for the borough to consider setting a target, then this is something that would have to be debated through council or moved through council under the normal process. Therefore, it's not appropriate to consider the motion as amended to 2035. Thank you.
So I take it that you are opposing the amended motion?
Absolutely. For all of these reasons, I think all members should vote against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett.
I think he was speaking to the motion, not anybody else wants to speak to
Does
the
it-
amendment.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Harden, are you wishing to speak to the amendment?
Just on a clarification, I think the motion answers itself. The council notes that Dacorum Council is on track for a 60% recycling by 2030. I don't understand the need for the motion. We are doing, as Councillor Barrett says, we are on target to achieve that. There's no need for the motion.
So now we move to,
We need to ask Councillor England whether he wants to talk finally on the amendment
yeah.
before we take it.
Councillor England, do you wish to talk to the amendment?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Please do.
I just wish to clarify. In council in November, I referred to a 65% recycling target, which I had found in my research. At the time, I believed that that was a Hearts Waste Partnership target. And so when I drafted this motion, I returned to that belief. However, in further preparation, I was unable to find a piece of research that I had found previously and relied upon. And so in the course of my research, I realised that actually there was a 65% target, which was in fact a central government target, which is on the government website. And I've circulated that link to members earlier today. So I'm putting the amendment in order to help Councillor Harden to see how the motion does in fact make sense, provided the amendment is accepted.
So if this amendment is passed, then presumably we're looking at a 2035 length of time rather than a 2030 length of time. Is that correct?
Yes, we are then considering whether we should adopt a more ambitious target. In fact, a target which has already been adopted by central government.
Okay.
We need to take a vote. So
Yeah.
ask those in favour of the amendment.
Yes, okay. So now we come to a vote on the amended motion. Those in favour?
Chair, do I, as a seconder of the amendment, do I get to speak to the amendment as well before we go to vote?
I'm told yes.
I think so.
Councillor Freed.
So I want to clarify with the amendment that the function of the motion doesn't change. We are still talking about DBC committing to a 2030 target, and it is the same 2030 target as the original motion. What it has changed is the reference to where that target is based from, and therefore why we feel that that is an achievable target. So the motion would only commit DBC to the increased target for 2030. It's just that happens to be based on a 2035 target from central government rather than the Hertfordshire side. The net effect on DBC is exactly the same on the original motion.
Councillor England needs to clarify.
I'm afraid that I'm somewhat confused over this because the wording of the motion certainly does not state that. Councillor England, can you cast some light on this?
I will try, Mr. Mayor. As I've had one go at explaining, but I'll try again.
Just one moment, please. I'm sorry to other members, but the last speaker should have been the seconder to the motion. So we can't have any further discussion, we're just having some clarification here. Carry on.
Yeah, so if I explain my purpose in bringing this amendment is to avoid the absurd situation.
Mr Mayor, on a point of order, please.
Yes, Councillor Dewars.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I share your confusion because we appear to have gone from 60% to 65% from Hearts-Waste Partnership to government targets and from 2030 to 2035. For the benefit of everybody here and those watching, could I ask Councillor England if he would read in its entirety, without any deviation or other comment, the actual motion that he is now proposing?
It's this one, isn't it?
Is that?
I shall,
Councillor can read it.
eh?
Councillor can read that.
Yes, okay, Councillor England.
Okay, this is the motion which I feel that we would all have a happier time debating. This council notes that the Quorum Council is on track for 60% recycling by 2030 and is currently fourth in Hertfordshire for its recycling percentage. In order to signal a drive for more and faster progress, this council asks that the council sets out an ambitious plan to increase the recycling percentage target by 2 percentage points per year in order to reach the central government 2035 target of 65%.
Leaving aside who the council will be asking, I think we need to proceed to a vote now. Okay, so we are voting on the amendment as read out by Councillor, by the proposer, Councillor England. So we now have a vote and you have, we will do this electronically.
No, we'll use hands, please, sorry. I think it's all good. Is it? Okay. Electronic.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I'm told that the electronic thing is working, so if you...
Touch the screen.
I've done it. No.
Yeah. So,
So much for my drinks invitation. Yeah. If, excuse me. Wait, do we have another?
Mr Mayor, it's left or right? Left, right.
Yeah. I don't think we can spend all night on this. I think we'll take a show of hands.
Left if you do that, it's right if you do that.
Touch the screen anyways, but...
Those in favour of the amendment, what's the matter?
It's behind you. Come on, it's not rocket science.
okay, no, we'll do it by hand. Sorry, Chair, can't be sure. So.
There's some uncertainty as to the validity of the electronics, so we will vote by show of hands. Those in favour of the amendment, please. And those against? You are now to vote.
27. 27, so that's...
Did you include the deputy? And abstentions?
Okay, so we need to return to the...
Yeah, okay, so the numbers,
16.
the motion is lost. The voting was 16 members for, 28 against and 1 abstention. So now we have to return to the original motion.
Asking anybody has
Does anyone else? Oh, I've got quite a list of people. Can I assume that the people who have pressed their buttons wish to speak to the original motion? No. Councillor Chapman, are you wishing to speak to the original motion?
No.
Okay. Okay. So,
I think we can just move to Councillor England.
Councillor England, would you like to?
I want to speak. I told them. This one.
Councillor Wilkie.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to support the motion, though I would have liked to have supported the amended motion. I think the motion, first of all, acknowledges how well we've done, but we still need to be ambitious. We're all aware of the climate change impact, and your own government reports show that there is going to be massive impact on residents. That includes poverty and losing their homes, and further impact. So I think this is something that we really need to consider very carefully, and I'd like to support Councillor England in his motion. Thank you.
Yes, I would only like to point out that it's not my government. It's our government.
I didn't vote for them, Chair, but yes.
So Councillor England, would you like to sum up? Oh, sorry, there are some, I beg your pardon, Councillor Williams. I beg your pardon, Councillor, we'll come to you. Councillor England,
Yeah.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A simple reason that we won't be supporting the motion is, not for the first time, this motion simply seeks to reiterate council policy. And the only reason I can think of, because Councillor England refers to it in the motion, council has a policy to reach 60% by 2030. A policy agreed by this administration. I think Councillor England is just seeking to transfer the praise for that policy from the administration to a motion put down simply to endorse an existing policy and take credit for it, not for the first time, rather snakery, trying to claim credit for someone else's policy. Reject the motion.
Point of order, please, Chair. That's not appropriate language.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. Such comments draw all of us into disrepute, and I wouldn't wish to be associated with them, and I'm sure
Thank
no
you
one
very
else
much.
would. Personal remarks are not appropriate.
I'm a little surprised at the combativeness of your language tonight, Councillor Williams. Councillor Barry Mears.
Thank you. It wasn't to reinforce it, that's what the amendment was. It was to change it to 65%. So that's 5 more than 60. That is different to 60. I don't know, I understand there was a bit of confusion, and I think that's why it got voted down. So that's why obviously this won't be supported, because it's not the amended, which it sounds like you would have supported, but you got confused and decided against it. That's what it sounds like. I mean, I understand 10% is an excellent figure, like on our green bins, but maybe 5% isn't, so.
Thank you. Councillor England, do you wish to sum up? Oh, God, but sorry, I beg your pardon. Could members please indicate if they wish to speak? I've got Councillor Stevens at the death. Is there anyone else? Okay, I'm going to ask Councillor Stevens to make his contribution, and then I'm going to go to Councillor England. Okay. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at a spreadsheet that came out with the email. And I'm looking at the data because I'm a person who likes to look at evidence. Yeah. And the evidence shows that for the last few years, our recycling rate appears to be of the order of 52%. Now, what we're trying to do is set up a trajectory to take us to the 60%, the 65%. There might be a policy there which says this is what we're aiming for, but we're languishing. So I think reinforcing the message is what we're trying to do. And I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor England.
Last chance, Mr. Mayor. No, I'm here. Thank you. Again, I'd like to apologise to colleagues. As I explained earlier, there was a genuine reason for wanting to amend this motion so that we could have a sensible debate. I think we've ended up having a faintly absurd debate, and it's one that I was hoping to avoid. However, you could say I was trying to offer the council a ladder, but instead I've grabbed a snake. And them's the breaks, somebody once said. So, to clarify where I am, and I think Councillor Stevens makes a good point. Even if the numbers don't change, we've still stalled. We've made some progress. We've made progress in the past. Again, I circulated to members a chart of collated data which showed what our progress trajectory had been. And it's very clear that although we made some steps forward, in recent years, we have absolutely flatlined. And in that context, I know you can use statistics whichever way you like. You can go back to 2011 if it suits you, or you can look at the last few years and say, are we really performing at a level which is going to get us there? And I don't think we are, and that's why I brought the motion. Regardless of whether it's 65%, regardless of whether it's government target or whether it's a Hertfordshire Waste Partnership target, at the moment, there is a genuine question as to whether we're going to hit 60% by 2030. There is. So, in comparison terms, as I did circulate the data for anyone who wants to look at these figures in detail, it's clear that Dacorum has made progress in the years 2015 to 2017, particularly, and all credit due to the officers and the team and the residents that were behind that. But progress fell back sharply in 2017, 2018, and has now clearly stalled in 2019 to 2022. So I'm just looking at the figures here. I'm just talking about the figures. Our immediate neighbours in Hertfordshire are Three Rivers, St Albans and Watford. Three Rivers has been leading these charts for decades, and St Albans transformed its performance from 2015-2016, when at that time it was level with Dacorum, to 2018-2019, when they caught up Three Rivers and actually went past them. Watford, the other comparison I brought, is an urban district, so it's more comparable to Stevenage or the Hemel Hempstead part of Dacorum, and that's consistent with increased challenge on recycling outcomes. 65% is clearly achievable, so isn't it a choice if we don't do the same as St Albans has done in recent years? I haven't got the figure for 2011 to hand for St Albans, but I would imagine it's not far different from where Dacorum was. We need to develop our processes, but we also need to lead and motivate residents. As Dacorum is currently stalling at 52.7% in 2022, and we need to add 12.3% in 12 years if we are to meet the Conservative government's current target, why don't we aim to do better and get to 65% by 2028? By aiming for 2% per year, an achievement by the end of the decade, or sooner, we set a clear goal for our residents. That's not a bad thing. If the current cabinet does not set a date, the Liberal Democrat cabinet of the future will show some overdue ambition to avoid being left behind by St Albans and perhaps even overtaken by Watford. Thank you.
We will now proceed to a vote. Those in favour of the motion? And those against the motion? Abstentions? There voted in favour of the motion 16.
15.
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was looking at the previous vote. 15 for the motion, 27 against, and 1 abstention. The motion therefore falls. Thank you. I'm sorry, 2 abstentions. Who was the other one?
2 abstentions.
My apologies. The counters missed it. The tellers missed it. Councillor England is now about to propose motion 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I propose motion 3, which I understand we have an agreed amendment.
Do you have the wording for the motion as amended?
I can read out the motion as amended. This council notes that just 17.8% of the funds available to residents in England and Wales for heat source pump grants, I think that's mangled, heat pump source grants have been claimed in the first 3 quarters of the life of the scheme. It is further noted that the value of the grants of £5,000 each would appear to be a deterrent to applicants in England and Wales. The council asked the portfolio holder to write to the government to ask for an improved and enhanced scheme which will match the Scotland offer of £7,500 to £9,000 grants, full stop.
And do you have a seconder for the motion?
I'm happy to second and reserve my right, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? If not, then, Councillor Stevens, I beg your pardon. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this motion as it gives us an opportunity to also reaffirm this carbon literate council's commitment to cutting carbon emissions. I was going to speak at length, but I'm going to truncate it. Given the huge increase in energy costs over the last year, it was unsurprising that there should be much greater interest in ways to reduce the nation's dependency on imported gas supplies. And although there's been much emphasis on improving insulation of properties to cut heat loss, we cannot escape the fact that we continue to heat our houses with fossil fuels. The result is millions of tons of carbon enters the atmosphere. The review by the MP, Chris Skidmore, which came out very recently, recommends that new gas boilers should be banned within the next decade. This has caused some apoplexy among the usual media and climate skeptics, including some in here. No doubt their lobbyist friends will be busy claiming that it's not possible for one reason or another. And I also add, beware the siren voices of the hydrogen gas mix lobby to obfuscate the debate. A 25% hydrogen content is still burning carbon by the ton. And a letter from an academic at University College in October said, hydrogen as a domestic fuel being pressed hard by the gas companies is a distraction. It has to be made either from natural gas, which produces CO2 and can also release methane, a much more powerful greenhouse gas, or it can be made by electrolysis of water, which uses electricity. Now, I know the council has been specifying heat pumps in the new build, but the numbers we're talking about are fairly trivial. But I welcome the initiative to try and persuade people to take up heat pumps. I thought I'd take the opportunity to tell members my own personal experience last year. You'll recall I've been banging on about carbon reduction for an age. I investigated heat pumps, and I had one fitted in January last year, so in the middle of winter, because of a delay. It's now been installed for almost a year. My energy supplier has caught up with me, and it tells me what my annual emission rate has been and will be. Our energy supplier tells me that our energy consumption has fallen by about 2/3. And that's an annual saving of about 15,000 kilowatt hours. Now, if you factor that in to what the new unsubsidized electricity rates are going to be, that is a huge saving. So I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss this with other members if they want to be persuaded. But I think what this council needs to do is publicize the benefit of heat pumps. And that's where the grant comes in. The RHI, in fact, has been changed to a £5,000 upfront grant. It used to be a grant you collected over 7 years, and you didn't know whether you were going to get it until months afterwards. Now, if energy costs remain at the levels we're currently forecasting without the subsidy, the heat pump industry will be a major investment and employment opportunity for the whole supply chain. And as for meeting the need for an upskilling the workforce, I spotted in our mailing, this is the borough's mailing, the need for a reference to an initiative taking place in Manchester. The Manchester College has set up a retrofit academy, which has been sponsored by the building industry. And is this something that the borough should also take a lead on in developing the potential in this area? So I welcome what this motion is trying to do, and I'm hoping all our members will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor England, would you like to sum up?
Councillor Williams.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Williams, did you
I seconded the motion.
You seconded the motion, I beg your pardon. And I've lost track of everything.
Track of where you are, is it?
Right.
No, I'm happy to rise to second the motion. Clearly, it doesn't name the portfolio holders, but I'll take it that I'll rise as leader to make it easier if that helps. Since I saw the motion, I tried to do a little bit of research on heat pumps and how effective they are and how costly they are to put in and whether they are, and Councillor Stevens' experience doesn't seem to be typical. Lots of people have queried the efficiency, the cost, can you retrofit some of the old house and how much work you have to do, and people that used to coming in at 6 o'clock, putting the heating on and the house being warm by 6:30, I understand with heat pumps that doesn't quite work. And if looking at the temperature of your water and stuff, it might take you 3 hours to boil an egg. Important egg. But it is technology that we need to move forward with, and therefore we, if the government is able to give bigger grants, I'm not sure, given what I've read about it, that the grant available is the thing that's holding people back. But conversely, a bigger grant might make people move forward. So happy to support the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor England.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really welcome the support to pass this motion. I think it's excellent when this council uses its voice, and I think we should do it more. The Dacorum housing portfolio holder has talked about Fabric First for some time, but as we know, insulation has slowed at Dacorum, the pace of putting in insulation, and we remain massively invested in gas boilers for our extensive stock. As highlighted very recently in a report by the MP, Conservative MP Chris Skidmore, which may turn out to be the only sensible thing Liz Truss commissioned in her time as PM. Going green would be a massive economic opportunity, but only if we take the lead on it. That means alternatives to gas. But like Councillor Stevens, I think the idea of hydrogen in people's homes is rather alarming. That means we need to focus on heat pumps. I want to share and credit as inspiration the words of a knowledgeable person in the heat pump industry, Mr. Phil Hurley, who is the MD of NIBE Energy Systems. I can share the blog if anyone's interested. He says, with the expectation of continued heat pump growth this year globally, the UK has historically lagged other countries. In Poland alone, heat pump sales increased by up to 140% in 2022 compared to the same period in 2021, meaning that there, heat pumps account for 30% of all heating systems sold. In the UK, there are still around 1.7 million gas boilers installed every year, with approximately 60,000 heat pumps installed this year. In contrast, French heat pump sales in 2021 were over 500,000. If we're to catch our European colleagues, if we're to be world leading on something, it's clear there's some way to go. Policy will play a crucial role in accelerating UK heat pump progress. Sorry, that last bit was me ad-libbing. And going into 2023, the flagship boiler upgrade scheme will have just over 2 years left to achieve its targets, but with only 17.8% of its year one funding spent, with 3 months to go. A raise in public profile is needed to boost the scheme's awareness and fuel development of the opportunity. Employing the methods used to raise awareness of the Green Homes Grant could be something to follow. With the Scottish Government recently announcing 7,500 grants for heat pumps, rising to 9,000 for rural homes, on top of an interest-free loan for homeowners, there is a clear precedent for greater ambition. And I note that in this motion, we've actually deleted by agreement, we've deleted the interest-free loan. When the French government committed to phase out all boiler sales within 10 years, there was a surge of interest in heat pump installer training by 264% in 2019. Similar decisiveness confirming boiler phase-out dates in the UK has been a missed opportunity to power action from installers and homeowners to accelerate the inevitable move to heat pumps. A decision on this will give confidence needed to those sitting on the fence. And that's the end of what Phil says. In closing, this is why we need to lobby for this, and Dacorum, as a large social housing stockholder, really should be leading the call, and I'm delighted that it is. I urge members, and I'm grateful for support from the Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor. I beg your pardon. Councillor England. I'm suffering from withdrawal symptoms. I won't tell you what I'm withdrawing from. Those in favour of the motion, please. Those against the motion. I didn't feel I needed to, but now I see that I do. I'm sorry, could you put your hands down? We'll have a count.
You don't need to count. It's clearly agreed.
Okay.
There's not
All right. We don't need to record the numbers. I'm told we don't need to record the numbers, and I saw there were only 2 people voting against, so the motion is clearly carried. Thank you. We come now to business from the last council meeting, and I understand that...
Mr. Mayor, we have written questions at 6.
Oh, God. Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Yes, okay. Councillor Symington to Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, you'll all be very pleased to hear that I wasn't allowed any preamble to my questions. So here goes. This is just the plain vanilla question. How many properties within Dacorum's council-owned housing portfolio have an up-to-date EPC rating?
Sorry, I was waiting for you to ask me to answer, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
DBC have 1,577 checked and verified EPC certificates.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Symington?
Yes, thank you. So that's what, about 15% of the total. Can you tell me how many of them have an ABC rating?
No, but I can answer the question afterwards. I wouldn't have those sort of figures to my hand.
Okay, thank you. And so how many of the properties, so you don't know how many there are, but so basically how many are going to be retrofitted? I mean, this is a question about insulation, okay, and it's really, really important. And we've been talking about heat pumps. You know, it's really important that the existing housing stock is insulated because the costs for the people living in these houses are far higher than the average for the UK, the figures for Decorum. As I said, I'm not being allowed to tell you what they are, so we can't really disclose them. But the figures that I've been given, that are from the National Housing Federation.
I'm sorry, this is not, if I may say so, a supplementary question, because...
Okay, so you can't tell me how many have an ABC rating. So then my next question will be, if you knew that, how many properties are due to be retrofitted to improve the insulation? Or is there no policy to do that?
We have a policy for retrofitting, and we are also, because obviously you do not need an EPC certificate unless you're selling the property. But you're quite right, it does feed into the information that will be helpful for us when we're doing the stock condition surveys. And that will become part of the whole home surveys that will be starting in April, so the next financial year. So in the next tranche of stock condition surveys, it will include everything from chimney to the cellar, if they have one, about that accommodation, which will include the EPC rating as well as mould, gas, electricity and everything else.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Symington, you have another question, I understand. 6.2.
Thank you. This is another housing question. How many reports of empty homes has the council received in the last 3 years?
Councillor Griffiths.
Between 19 and 20 to date have been reported via 33 complaints from the general public.
Do you have a supplementary? Councillor Symington.
Well, actually, I think you've just answered the first supplementary, which is how many of these will contain a complaint about the condition of the empty property. So I'll skip to my next supplementary question, which is what level of confidence do you have in the reporting system, given that I'm receiving emails from residents who have not had a response when they have reported an empty property?
I have 100% confidence in the process that we have. We have also upgraded the website in the last year, and that has encouraged more people to report. On the particular case that you have raised with me that was missed, I have no idea how that was an ongoing case anyway, so it wasn't a brand new case that came to the officer's attention. They were already monitoring that particular case. I won't go into the details of it, but I have 100% assurance from the officers, and I trust their judgment that our systems are robust.
Okay, thank you. So my last final question is that basically the Action on Empty Homes has identified actually 659 empty homes in Decorum. So how do you explain account for the discrepancy between those reported and those identified by Action on Empty Homes?
I'm being asked to comment on information that I haven't seen, Mr. Mayor, so it's difficult for me to comment. The only thing I can say is I'm referring to legal. In other words, the council has been able to evidence that for 2 years these homes have been empty, because that is the only way we can move forward legally on getting court orders, etc. Worked on. I don't know the information that Councillor Symington is referring to, therefore I can't give an opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. You've had 3 supplementary questions. Do you mean 6.3? Please do.
Okay, I think, so if I'm allowed to observe, by having the preamble cut out of any question, obviously we end up with the portfolio holder not understanding the context or being able to answer the questions. Anyway, I shall carry on.
There was no issue in Councillor Symington sending me any information she wanted to beforehand, so I could have done the research for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. I think Councillor Symington, that the question about preamble was holding up the council with the preamble. But as Councillor Griffiths has pointed out, there's nothing to stop you providing her with
Okay, so
information.
point of order, I actually sent all that information to the legal department. It's not, if it wasn't passed on, then it wasn't passed on.
Okay.
But it wasn't,
Okay,
it wasn't submitted in the first instance.
Then I think we should ask.
I think you're asking for a revised procedure where not only do we submit it to the legal department, we also submit it to the portfolio holder direct ourselves. I think that's what I'm understanding from this conversation.
I think that would be helpful if you want to move things along quickly and efficiently.
Right, thank you. Well, we'll make a note to do that in future.
Could
The last question is that I have residents in my ward who are concerned that Dacorum has just 1/4 of the national average of publicly available electric vehicle charge points. What actions is the portfolio holder taking to accelerate the installation of rapid and fast electric charging devices across the borough's publicly owned car parks and ensure that on-street electric charging devices are provided for those residents that don't have access to off-street parking?
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel Councillor Symington probably knows the answer to this question because it comes up at every scrutiny committee. And I try to give an update there. As we know, I issued a portfolio holder decision in May last year to work with 2 companies to provide EV chargers, both fast and rapid chargers, across the council's car parks and in some cases even in our neighbourhood centres across the borough. We submitted an application, we've negotiated terms and conditions with those operators, and we submitted an application at the end of October for the relevant funding, which is important to take this forward because the funding grant is going to be paying a significant part of the cost of the installation to the on-street residential charge point scheme, say at the end of October, and the relevant officer was interviewed early in November with a understanding that the turnaround time for these grant applications, excuse me, was around 3, maybe 4 weeks, but we allowed 5 or 6, expecting to get a decision in December. I understand that the people operating the scheme on behalf of the government, the Energy Saving Trust, have had a significant number of applications, and as of today, they have not given us an answer on our grant application. They've made favourable comments, but we haven't had a confirmation of the grant application. Until that decision is made, and our 2 potential partner organisations are installing them, are aware of that grant funding application, we can't move forward. They are very keen to start work on installing chargers in our car parks, and will do so as fast as they can afterwards. Some installations will be quicker than others because in some cases additional plant is required or planning permission is required for the larger chargers. In relation to on-street parking, on-street charging, that is a matter for the Highway Authority. I do not envisage that this council has a role currently in the provision of on-street chargers. And I've always maintained the provision of charging facilities for electric vehicles, much as the refuelling facilities for any other type of propelled vehicle, should not come as a burden to our taxpayers, and therefore any of these schemes need to be self-financed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Symington?
Yeah, only to say a question which is, well, the first is a statement, which is that I obviously didn't know the answer to the question, or I wouldn't have asked it. I feel like there is information, but it's never fully disclosed. I didn't know that at the end of October you were applying for funding grants, and actually my question is, at what point did it change from the 2 companies paying for it themselves to us requiring to go for funding, presumably AUKS, or whatever the substitute, OLES, grant funding, when at one point it was going to be that the 2 companies would pay in return for a long lease or length of lease.
Councillor Williams.
It has never changed, Mr. Mayor. One of the companies, the rapid chargers, will pay the whole cost themselves. The fast chargers, connected curb, have always, their approach has always been on the basis that grant funding was available through OCRA. That hasn't changed throughout the process. And I did report the scrutiny when I was asked at the end of the year that grant application had been made.
Thank you.
Which scrutiny committee was that? Oh, thank you. Councillor Symington, do you have another supplementary?
No, thank you for the information.
Thank you. We move on now then to agenda item 6, business from the last council meeting. As far as I'm aware, all of the outstanding action points have been dealt with, so there's no business from the last meeting. We now move to item 7, cabinet referrals. Councillor Williams. Oh God, don't keep pedantic. Councillor Williams.
My machine has decided to turn itself off.
Would it be in order, Mr Mayor, if I reminded Councillor Williams that it's CA/109/22 Kings Langley Neighbourhood Plan?
No, I had it.
No, not really. I knew what it was, I just got to find it on the order paper. So it is business from the last council meeting. The Kings Langley Neighbourhood Plan is the first item for moving. Please. Oh God,
And it's CA
110/22 Treasury Management was resolved to recommend.
Seconded.
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, according to what I'm looking at, is overview and scrutiny referrals. I understand there are no referrals from scrutiny committees. Agenda item 9, changes to committee membership. Councillor Williams.
None, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tinsel.
None, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. Agenda item 10, changes to committee dates. Councillor Williams.
Just one change to notify council. The original timetable had the annual council after the elections in May on the Wednesday the 10th, I believe it is, which is a bit too close to the elections to get things together. So that is being moved to Wednesday the 17th.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Mr Mayor, with your permission, in the spirit in which it's intended, could I ask the Leader of the Council whether he could ask the monarch to change the name of the bloody coronation next year, because this year it really interferes with the election.
Sorry, I missed that.
I suspect that may exceed my authority as leader, but it'll be nice to have a party the weekend after the election, won't it?
I would have thought that might have been more important as to how it affected the FA for Cup final, but never mind. We'll now turn to 11. Agenda item 11, call-in and urgency procedure. There are no items as far as I'm aware for consideration. I think that concludes our business for this evening. I regret to say to those of my putative guests that we've long overrun the 9:30 cut-off day, so I shall have to invite you to drinks at the next the next council meeting. I now declare the meeting closed at 1 minute to 10 o'clock. Thank you.